See two of the biggest names in folk rock as they take the stage together. Don't miss out when the Avett Brothers and Trampled by Turtles co-headline the XL Energy Center on October 24th. Tickets are still available for this incredible show. For more info and to get yours today, head over to KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Couple 13-14 past Common Man program. I'm Common along with Tana B. John Bonus kind enough to join us here this afternoon to talk about the news that broke earlier today. Polet family announces intent to explore selling the Minnesota Twins are on the market. The question would be, if they really do intend on selling, I wonder how many people are interested. Yeah. You and I don't have the money to buy them. We just, as much as you and I would love to own a baseball team.
I think we're both working on it, though, right? Yeah, okay.
First of all, the one question becomes right away is, will somebody local buy it? You have Glenn Taylor and you have Taylor, who you wouldn't think would be interested because he was at least at one time trying to divest himself of the Wolves. And you have Lori and A-Rod. You also have the Wilfs, who have a lot of money, and they've had a lot of success over there. No big games, but
Bill McGuire from the Minnesota United.
Yep, and then of course Craig Leopold. But like Tana B and I talked about, I think Craig's money is more his wife's money. His wife might want to put the brakes on, but who knows? So, do you think there's any of those names you just mentioned, or do you think there are people? There are people here that my guess is there's people in the Twin Cities that would be able to couple up with somebody else and have the wherewithal to do it. What's your guess? Do you have one at all?
I don't have a guess. I honestly, I haven't had time to research who the most valuable Minnesota families are, based Minnesota families are in this particular topic. I would think the Carlsons or General Mills related folks. I mean, the one thing that Minneapolis does not lack for. I mean, there's a lot of things Minneapolis does not lack for, but it doesn't lack for Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
And, the executives and or owners of Fortune 500 companies tend to be the people who are going to, buy something like this on a pretty regular basis. I think it is important. I would love to hear that there are somebody local that can come up with the money to be able to buy it, and that the Poleds would prefer to sell it to somebody locally as opposed to somebody, who is willing to come in from elsewhere but able to give them a higher price, or more interested in giving them a higher price. A lot of this again comes back to we're not totally sure what the Poleds' motivations are for selling this. If price is a significant factor, it's not hard to imagine that an ownership group from outside the Twin Cities could outbid a ownership group from inside the Twin Cities. As we mentioned earlier, there's only 30 of these things available. 4 of them have been sold in the last year. They don't come up for sale very often, only 4 in the last 12 years. If you are a baseball fan, or if you are somebody who is interested in buying a baseball team, or if you are a venture capital group that is investing in sports franchises, these only come along every now and then, and you've got to pay the freight when it happens. We just saw Cleveland, 4 or 5 years ago, be bought, with a significant stake by a ownership group that also owns the 76ers and owns, I think a EPL team and some other things like that. Like it's become a business where it's not just individual people or individual families from a local group buying these things. It's more of a national commodity at this point. And so that raises some concerns.
Well, there are questions. There's always the fear from a fan base that someone's going to buy the team and they're gone. They're going to relocate, pull up stakes, take the big top somewhere else. Does the league, do they have any say about that?
They do, but we just say Oakland does jump to Sacramento and to Vegas.
Is there language? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I thought Taylor basically had said, "I'll sell, but you have to sign paper saying you won't move it." Could the Poleds do that and say?
Maybe.
And is that legal binding? I mean, and is it only for a certain amount of time? Because if you bought something from somebody, so you can never move it, I think most people go, what do you mean I can never move it? You can maybe put a 5-10 year thing on this, but if push comes to shove and the market isn't supporting, now I think we do support it, but let's say a market wasn't supporting it, which I think might be kind of the complaint in Oakland, for instance.
Sure.
Well, then you can't force me to stay, or maybe you can. Do you know if are there any covenants or anything?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the and I don't know if any of us know enough about the details of the lease that the Twins have for Target Field right now. They're 15 years into a 30-year lease, so they got 15 years left on that lease. You'll recall in 2002 when the Twins were trying to contract themselves, one of the things that stopped them from being able to contract themselves before the 2002 season, before the CBA got signed, before any of that stuff happened, is that they had 1 year lease left on the Metrodome. 1 year of their lease left, and they intended to break that lease the way anybody would intend to break a lease. They just said, we're just not going to. We'll pay for it. We'll pay whatever we're supposed to pay, but we're not going to actually play there.
Correct.
And it was ruled by Judge Harry Crump. Is that right?
That sounds like the right name.
That no. Part of the lease, you got some beneficial terms in that lease because you play there, because you are bringing fans into the city. That is part of what you have to do to honor that lease. You can't just pay it, right? I don't know enough about the lease that the Twins have with Hennepin County or whoever, or the Hennepin County Stadium Commission or whatever, that the Target Field, to know what is included in that lease, who is held to it, who has to be paid for it, to know whether or not that 15-year lease is it makes the Twins relatively safe. What I think does make the Twins relatively safe is it's not like there's a bigger market out there waiting for a baseball team.
Right.
They're all taken up. Even if you take a look at, Las Vegas, right? Las Vegas is a smaller market than Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then on top of that, the A's are moving there, but the A's were sharing a city. Now, it's a big city.
Yeah.
But essentially sharing a metro area with the San Francisco Giants. That's part of why they've had trouble getting a stadium. It's part of why they've had trouble getting revenues and getting attendance. And I would also suggest they've got ownership that isn't willing to invest in that particular team. So there is no immediate candidate for, we're going to jump to Portland or Nashville.
Yeah.
These are towns that are mentioned, but they're not. They're all a step down. Now, can a stadium deal in one of those areas, one of those towns, make up for the stadium deal that the Twins have here? I think one danger that they have is that the Twins stadium was built around sort of a different business model than is sort of the preferred business model right now. When the Twins were building their stadium, the idea was you build it downtown because you're downtown and you've got lots of businesses around, lots of easy accessible for the entire metro area. It's easy to draw attendance. It's easy to get corporate sponsors. Lots of money there, right? And the Pohlads had some extra advantages in that they owned some properties in the North Loop that they could increase the value of those properties by building a stadium there. The new model is you're given a big plot of undeveloped land. Mm-hmm. You build a stadium there, and then you build around it a commercial district. You essentially kind of build your own Wrigleyville around
what they did
the
at
stadium.
TCO Performance Center.
Like they are doing a TCO Performance Center, the way the Braves are doing things in where they're doing it. You're seeing it everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And then around because you've created sort of an instant commercial area that people want to live, then you build real estate around it as well. So you not only get the stadium, you not only get the revenues from that stadium, you not only get the revenues from the rental of the commercial district, you also get the revenues from all of the condominiums and apartments and such that are around it.
Well, I think the Wills are responsible for all the development at TCO Performance Center, right? I think that's all them.
So you could see a ownership group that's paying $1.5 billion and is interested in recouping their investment, taking a look at that and saying, well, this is a pretty good way to do that, and we can't do it in downtown Minneapolis anymore. First we'll bring it to the Twin Cities and see if they can find a place like that for us. But that's a lot of that is, potentially way out in the future, depending on whether or not what the lease situation and frankly, they might love Target Field and what it provides. Target Field is a sweet deal for the Twins and includes, millions of dollars every year in improvements that part of the tax that paid for building it in the first place also includes improvements on it for, part of this 30-year lease as well.
Yeah, Kevin writes on the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, he says, common, the other owners have to approve relocation. No owner wants to move from a mid-sized market with a corporate base and a populace with money when they also have a new stadium. Furthermore, the leagues want expansion teams with expansion fees that are spread amongst owners. The A's move because they have a 60-year-old stadium and no plans to build a new one in Oakland, which I think is true. That didn't stop the Houston Oilers from moving to
Tennessee.
To Tennessee.
Sure.
And other, Oklahoma City has a basketball team. Now, was that an expansion or was that a relocation? I don't remember.
When you're dealing with guys who have more money than God.
I was from Seattle.
Seattle, okay.
Yeah, you can you always have to play into it like they can act irrationally. There's no reason for them not to act irrationally.
And a lot of these teams, like a Nashville, like a Portland, I think a lot of the people that are sort of in charge of the city or they're making the decisions, to them, it makes us feel big time. We've been elevated now. Now we're Oklahoma City. We have an NBA basketball team. We're big time now. If you're in Nashville, you're sitting around there going, guess what? We've got a Major League Baseball team now. So I think there's something to that. But and again, like you said, we don't know the language about this, that, or that, so we don't know. Right. But I would think it's fairly safe to say they're probably going to remain.
It feels like a stable market for anybody that is buying into it.
Yeah.
I think that is part of the reason you would have a sale price here. This is not going to be a distressed sale,
right? That
you're going to want to necessarily move. So
yeah, let's take a break. One more segment. I want to talk to you about just what it means to the Twins in general when a new owner comes in, what could happen on and off the field. So we'll continue one more segment with the John Bonus. Then it'll be time for Spread Spring with Deuce from Lincoln and Rosie from London. Tennevy's got a keyword for us.
Yeah, the fan and two men in a truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword bank at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. The keyword is bank. Enter now at KFAN.com. If Mark Rosen was on the Common Man program today, it would be brought to you by your Greater Twin City Honda dealers. It's the playoffs. Come out to Mall of America this Sunday for a playoff championship series watch party from 1:30 to 3:30. The game will be streamed live on the big screen in the Huntington Bank Rotunda with tons of fun prizes and games for all ages. Get the full details now at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Rosen will be with us shortly for a very short period of time for Spreads. It's coming up at about 2:30.
Who needs him?
Yeah, who needs him? John Bonus in right now from Gleeman and the Geek to talk the news today. The Pohlads have announced their intent to explore selling the baseball club. When do you and Gleeman put together your new, fresh podcast?
We already have dropped it.
You did?
We put it together as soon as the news broke. We both pulled together as many coherent thoughts as we could on it as possible. It is at patreon.com/Gleeman. Costs you $1 to sign up. The truth is, you subscribe to it, you'll get this one free, should be told, because anything we recorded in the past is free. So go ahead, go out there and grab it. You're going to get a good hour plus of every possible thought about the news that the Pohlads intend to explore selling the Twins.
Very good. We talked lease. We used the word lease a couple of times in the last segment in regards to the stadium. Should Twins feel like this is a new lease on life as far as the team itself? I mean, because I wouldn't expect if, let's say there is a new owner and buys a team, they fast track it. It happens before the start of next season. Yep. I don't think the news conference are going to go, and we intend to cut the payroll another $30 million. We're going to spend $100 million this year. My guess is what I think you alluded to, and I tend to agree. A new owner is going to be chomping at the bit. This is something he wants to do. He's excited. He doesn't look at that World Series trophy as a chunk of metal, as the commissioner once said. Right. He looks at it as, that's the bauble. That's why I bought this. I want to win. So I would expect not only would they maybe hold the payroll where it is, but they might want to go out and grab a couple of high-profile free agency.
Well, first impressions can buy you a lot of goodwill, too, for a decade. Like I said, the Pohlads had a decade of goodwill before they kind of started to lose that when they tried to sell the team. We ended the Gleeman and the Geek podcast with a little discussion about, what do we think this means in terms of timeline? It's hard to say. I really don't expect it to affect the Twins' offseason at all. These things just take too long to be able to do that. I will give one exception to that, one caveat to that at the end of this little monologue. As to whether or not it affects the 2025 season, probably not. Now, maybe if a deal gets done in 9 months and at the trade deadline they have a little extra money to spend and management is pushing for them to make some big moves, we could see that happen. We've seen Derek Falvey lean into that in the past. Those big moves, like the year that they went on and acquired Jorge Lopez and Tyler Mahle and, kind of put all their chips on the table, did not work out well. Mm-hmm. But they did, in fact, make a big play. The caveat I would make to all of this is we know Thad Levine left last, 2 weeks ago because his contract with the Twins was up. Well, when they announced Thad Levine's contract with the Minnesota Twins, which would last back in 2020, that would last through 2024. They also announced that Derek Falvey's contract with the Twins had been extended through the end of 2024. And Twins Daily has reached out a couple different times with the Twins PR department to say, was there been an extension signed with Derek Falvey? And the answer we got is, well, we don't comment on that during the season. We haven't heard any comments about it after the season. And unfortunately, when we saw Derek Falvey earlier this week, we didn't really have a lot of time for questions, so that's not a question that's asked. I can't imagine that the Twins would put up for sale, the Pohlads would put the Twins up for sale without having him locked into some sort of a long-term deal. Okay. That you want that, considering he has been a fairly hot commodity that has been talked about by other teams as to take over their general manager positions, bigger teams, etc. I would expect that they have him locked down before they went and tried to put the team on the market. But we haven't heard anything about it. There have been no official announcements about it. And if that isn't the case, I suppose that could be a change in the offseason, and that would affect their offseason. But I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I don't expect a lot of immediate changes. After once ownership kind of takes the reins, though, what you usually see is they invest in the team. They've wanted to own a baseball team for their whole lives, and now they've got one, and the Twins are in a competitive cycle. This is not a team that is bottomed out, except for the last 6-7 weeks. They are perceived to be as one of the contenders in the American League. I would think that there would be some initial investments in it to try and get them over the hump and create a new generation of baseball fans with an October run.
Just within the last week, Thad Levine resigned his position as right-hand man to Derek Falvey. Mm-hmm. Are we to believe that it was solely his decision? Was it mutual? Do you think he just thought, like almost riding out in the sunset, I've done what I can. He kind of compared himself to Mary Poppins, of all people, that, hey, now the kids can clean the room on their own. They can take their own spoonful of medicine, sugar to help the medicine go down. It's time for me to move on to bigger and better things. What's your take on that? What do you know?
The Twins certainly tried to portray it that way. And my discussions with whatever, executives and such behind the scenes that have seen things kind of bear out what he's been saying or what they were saying. When he came in when they both came in 2017 after that miserable 2016 season, Falvey was in charge, but he was a junior executive compared to Levine. And that's not unusual. You bring in a guy that you think is young and promising and going to be able to be a good leader, but you're a little worried about their seasoning, and you bring in somebody with a little bit more experience to help them along. Initially, those two had to transform a Twins organization that was kind of stuck in sort of the old way of doing things. They weren't really leaning into any of the new modern ways of looking at baseball, whether it's analytics or scouting or minor league development, etc. And they they talked quite a bit about investing in sort of the structures around the team, and they certainly have done that. And my sense is that as those structures developed and as people, kind of started taking over those structures, Levine's role got, a little bit squeezed, a little bit diminished. Things were, there wasn't as much new stuff to kind of tackle and take on. And so I think eventually he just kind of went, I'm going to try something else. So I think they said those discussions happened long before this losing streak, and I believe that to be true. I believe that Levine kind of outgrew his role there with the Minnesota Twins, or his role diminished within the Minnesota Twins.
Lastly, for you, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyways. Do you think that this announcement today is a positive for the franchise and for the fan base, a negative, or who knows yet? We just don't know yet.
We debated that also on the Cleveland McGee podcast today as to whether or not there's a net positive or net. But listen, I think Aaron made a good point, which was the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. But when somebody comes to you and says, you want to trade yards, you're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they really want to trade yards. Like, what's the matter with your yard over there? Like, I don't really, why do you want to trade? Pohlads are the only ownership group and caretakers of that franchise that we've known for 40 years. Certainly, the possibility exists that what comes next would be worse. But I think, in general, the discontent that we have seen with that ownership group, whether it was from the times that they were trying to sell or contract or wrangle a stadium or underinvest in payroll, I think for most of the 40 years that they've owned it, we've been hoping for something better, and now we've got a chance for something better. And I think if you take a look at, the people who are willing to invest in $1.5 billion in a baseball team, they're generally pretty excited to take over that baseball team and provide some value. So I think, it's not impossible that it's going to get worse, but I would say there's a better chance than not that this is good news for Minnesota Twins.
Well, once again, if people want to hear Gleeman and the Geek, how do they do it? It's real simple, right?
Just Google Gleeman and the Geek, right? And there's two ways you can get the free podcast, which we'll probably be doing a free podcast on Monday, I think. Or you can sign up for the Patreon and download the one that we recorded literally an hour and a half ago reacting to the news, as well as all of the offseason news, including the Levine firing, sitting down with Falvey, the TV deal, everything that stuff means. We release 2 or 3 of those a week.
Thanks for dropping in on short notice. We do appreciate it.
Good to see you, Common.
Good to see you, John.
Maybe next time we'll get to talk more actual baseball. That'd be fun.
You and I were talking off air about how exciting the playoffs have been at this point. There have been some really good series. We'll take a short break, come back. It's John Bonus of Gleeman and the Geek. Rosen and Deuce next for Spread Swing here on The Fan.
Plus.
Received a text message during John Bonus's appearance here, courtesy of the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line that says, "My gosh, that Twins guy Bonus can talk for hours, signed KOC." I thought that was worthy of a wah-wah-wah. Time now for Spread Swing.
Spread Swing.
What was he thinking? Going to Lincoln? I don't know. We go to Lincoln and welcome my firstborn Deuce into the conversation. Good afternoon, Deuce.
What do you think of Washington now?
Yeah, what do you think?
What do you think?
Well, I think they're a pretty good club. Let's also go to... Let's go across the pond to London, England, and bring Mark Rosen into the conversation. Mr. Rosen, how are you in jolly old England?
I'm doing fine. We're packing up, getting ready to come home early tomorrow morning, and it's been a wonderful stay here after the Vikings victory on Sunday. I'm looking forward to getting home, but loving every minute of London. It's been an exhilarating trip for sure.
It was announced earlier today that the Pohlad family is intending to explore selling the Minnesota Twins, which leads me to a text that came in that says, This is from Negative Nate, says, has Deuce considered selling his Spread Swing franchise to a more competent ownership group? Deuce, what's your response to that?
My response is I'm up 30 points this week, my boy.
Yeah.
And objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
And for you, Mark Rosen, I was in Chad Abbott's office, and I noticed there was a batch of lanyards with press credentials attached to it for the Minnesota Wild, and you had one in there, and I'm thinking, Rosen hasn't been east of the Mississippi in 25 years. Why are you getting a Wild credential? You're never going to go to a game, except, I guess, you'll take your daughter to one game. You'll never go as a member of the media, ever. And don't even say you're going to.
That's not true. No, that I have people that can verify for me. No, that's poppycock. That's okay.
Look, he says poppycock.
That's the way. That's what you want to talk about. That's fine.
Well, no, but I'm just saying. I admit that I'm not. That's why they don't have a press credential for me. I guarantee that you'll go with your daughter, but you will never go with a press credential.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all.
I will see.
No, he will if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, if they make the postseason, then you'll be there. Otherwise, you're not going to be there. But I'll watch.
You guys are such frauds.
You're the fraud. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to check with Teneby and I are going to check with the Wild and see how often you show up in the press box, and I guarantee you won't be there.
Fine.
You're not going to go.
All
That's
right.
okay. You're Mark Rosen. You're the legendary one. You don't need to anymore.
No, both are long seasons. We know that. And as far as the Pohlads go, obviously I was pretty surprised like everybody else, but I didn't hear what Mr. Bonus had to say. But to my way of thinking, the only Pohlad who was really a baseball fan, even though he was the patriarch, was Carl.
Yeah.
He actually did like the game. I never sensed from the time that Carl, passed on and passed the team along to his son, the gym and everybody else. I just felt that it really became a bit, even more of a business than it was when Carl bought the team.
Keep in mind, though, he was the one that wanted to sell to Beaver, and he was the one that wanted to contract. So as much as he loved the game,
I'm aware of that.
I think the money was. I think money was more important than.
Well, it always has been.
1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. The old ball game and root for the home team. Tenneby, why don't we take a look at spread swing here? Where are we at today?
Yeah, if you remember going into last week, Rosen had the commanding lead. He had 111 points.
Wow.
I was in second with 43. Common, you were in third with minus 17.5, and Deuce in lower than the Mendoza line at minus 31. But as Deuce said earlier,
now what do you think? What do you think of that?
He decided to go Washington minus 3.5 last week against Cleveland. And he doubled down.
No.
Oh.
And Washington won by 21 points, 34-13. So then when you take away the minus 3.5, that's 17.5. Double that to 35. So he gained 35 points on that one.
Wow.
And then just a small miss on your other one, Deuce. You had Pittsburgh minus 2.5 against Dallas. Actually, no, that's a bigger miss than I had. I had the wrong math there.
Yeah, well, people should check your math because
I lost about 5 points.
Yeah, you lost 5.5 there. So I'm gonna have to do your math here in a little bit, but you lost 5.5 on that one. I will get your updated score here shortly.
Tenneby, let's just say we should check your math also because there have been other times throughout the years that you've been a little off. Not often, but there have been times.
Yeah, I just make mistakes. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, don't get defensive. I'm just saying sometimes we should double check.
I'm actually pretty good at math, despite what the segment would represent.
Mm-hmm.
Common, you had the best of the lousiest of the best kind of week because you had Tampa Bay +2 against Atlanta. They lost by 6. You lost 4 there, but then you gained 4 on your other game because you had Houston +1 against Buffalo. They won by 3. So you had a complete wash. You are still at minus 17.5.
Just call me rock steady.
I had 2 small wins last week. I took Rosen's Minnesota Vikings minus 2.5 against the Jets. They won by 6, so I gained 3.5 there. I had Kansas City minus 5.5 on Monday Night Football against the Saints. They won by 13, so I gained 7.5 there. So I gained 11 points. I moved up to 54 points. And then Rosen had the other side of the New Orleans Kansas City game, so he lost 7.5 on that one. But a nice hit on your other one, Mark. You had Denver minus 2.5 against Vegas. They won by 18, so you gained 13.5. So a 6-point improvement for Mark Rosen. So here's where we're at. Rosie's at 117. I am at 54. Deuce, I believe, will now be at minus 1.5. I believe Deuce is at minus 1.5 now. I'll have to check that later.
He's laughing at his oldest boy.
And then Common, you're losing to Deuce. You're at minus 17.5.
You guys find this funny, do you? You're all laughing and smiling. You're Doug growing it.
So we'll go Common, Deuce, me, Rosen.
Spread swing.
Here we go. Here we go.
They're back.
This is where I start my comeback. Now it starts. Motor City Kitties, are we actually getting 3 points?
No.
Oh, we're not? We're 3-point favorites on the road? That can't be.
Minus 3 at Dallas.
Well, that's not even right. I thought Dallas was back. I thought Dallas was back, and Dak is back, and the Cowboys are America's team. Well, no. I'm just doing a bit. I'm taking the bike a lot.
Sorry to throw off your bet.
Don't worry about it.
Spread swing.
I'll actually be going across the pond for my first pick this week. I think the Bears played their most complete game last week. I know it's easy to look like a really competent team against the Carolina Panthers, but Caleb Williams looked darn good. The defense stifled the Red Rifle, and they won a commanding victory in the Windy City. Jacksonville is coming off of their first win of the season against Indianapolis, but it's easy for Trevor Lawrence and that offense to look dynamic against a very mediocre Indianapolis defense. I think the Jags cool off after their first victory of the year, and I think Chicago wins this one in London. I'll take the Bears -2.
Interesting.
Spread swing.
The Cincinnati Bengals are 1-4 right now, and they're in a desperation mode here. They are 3.5-point favorites in New York against the Giants. Cincinnati, it seems like in the Joe Burrow era, has traditionally been slow starters at the beginning of the season, and then they pick it up. And I don't know about the Bengals defense, but I've seen the Bengals offense play much better the last 2 weeks. Burrow is going. They got T. Higgins back healthy. Jamar Chase is going. I think this is a breakout game for the Cincinnati Bengals where they turn their season around against a mediocre New York Giants team that also, Malik Neighbors, their best offensive player, is still in concussion protocol. It's not a cinch he plays Sunday night. I'm going to take the Bengals 3.5-point favorites on the road in New York against the Giants.
Spread swing.
Now you grab my number one pick, but that's okay. That's what happens in your first place.
Why don't you just go with the Vikings? Even they're on a bye, you'll win anyways. You're living a charmed life. I mean,
I should take them. Right. Fly, Eagles, fly. I don't trust them that much. They're home. They have to give 9 points. The Cleveland Browns are imploding right before our eyes. Deshaun Watson and the entire organization is a complete hot mess right now. And Cleveland may not score in this game. I mean,
no. Will they cross the 50-yard line?
Once.
All right.
But I'm going to be happy that pretend it's a college game. I'm going to give the 9 points. I think it's going to be like a 31-6 win for Philadelphia.
Why don't you double down on this?
Yeah, you should double down and get some more points.
No, I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to get back in town and figure that out. But I'm going to take the Eagles -9 at home against Cleveland.
Spread swing.
Oh, is it my turn again?
Back to you.
Oh, I'm in last place. That's right. I'm going to follow in Deuce's footsteps. Tenneby and I talked about this club earlier in the week. I like this Washington team. I really do. I think Jaden Daniels is the front runner for MVP of the league right now. He's doing the things he's never done that will make him really good. I know Baltimore is the Ravens, and they've got this, and they got a little of that, and they're tapping on the Super Bowl door. But I think this Washington team is feeling good about themselves. I think they're going to go into Baltimore without any. The only thing they have to fear is fear itself, and I don't think they fear fear. I'm going to take those 6.5 points and go with the Washington Commanders. COMMANDERS. Go Commanders.
Spread swing.
I guess this week I'll be taking the first 2 games in Week 6 because I'm not going to wait till Sunday. I think the Seattle Seahawks are due for a game where they bounce. They're due for a bounce-back game. They had a rough beat last week against the New York Football Giants, but the San Francisco 49ers have had so much injury trouble this year, and I think without some of their key players, or at least some of their key players not at 100% health, they're a very average football team. Seattle's at home. It's tough to play against that 12th man. Plus, I get 3.5 points for it. So I'm taking the Seattle Sea Chickens tonight in Seattle, plus 3.5.
Think about all these points that you accumulated last week. You're just throwing back away now, and I don't know why. But go ahead. Take the Sea Chickens.
What's the weather forecast for Seattle tonight? Is it cloudy?
Heavy cloud cover, so maybe Deuce is onto something.
Spread swing.
Apparently, I like 1-4 teams because I'm now going with another 1-4 team this week. And Deuce, like you, I'm going across the pond, and I'm going to take the other side of the Chicago Bears Jacksonville Jaguars matchup.
Bears never liked this Bears club.
Bears are favored by 2. Here's the deal. Is there a team or an organization of football that plays in London more than the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I don't think there is.
They do it every single season. Their organization's used to it. They know how the trip works. All their players have played there. Whereas Chicago's bringing a rookie quarterback. They're bringing a brand new coaching staff that's never been over there. They're going to be tuckered. They're not going to be able to get their their circadian rhythm going.
Jet lag.
Yeah, jet lag. And, at least Trevor Lawrence showed a pulse last week. So I'm going to go Jacksonville, 2-point underdogs against the Chicago Bears at where Mark Rosen currently is in London.
Spread swing.
My turn. Right?
Yeah, you're last.
You're first place.
Yeah,
First is
I'm
last.
going to go. They had to escape Tampa Bay because of the hurricane, and they went to New Orleans early this week to get a couple days of workout. So, and isn't Derek Carr out for the Saints?
He is, yes.
Who's starting at quarterback for them now?
His brother.
Spencer Rattler.
Rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler.
I thought it was his brother, Daryl.
Yeah.
No,
Good luck.
What was his brother's name?
David.
David.
David, yeah, I think the Buccaneers might be next to the Vikings, and they're second or third best team in the NFC. I just like this team a lot. Baker Mayfield, they got a great offense. I think I'll be happy to give the 3.5, even though they're on the road at New Orleans. They've been there for 3 days, and they'll be ready to go. And I don't think the Saints are going to have as much success. Obviously, they got a good running game, but without Derek Carr, they're going to be in a little more trouble at the quarterback position. I'll take the Bucs, and I'll give the 3.5.
There we go. There's spread swing. Deuce, now let me ask you a question. The Cornhuskers, were they on a bye or are they on a bye this week?
They're on a bye.
Yeah, you won. You beat Rutgers, right?
Yeah, we beat the Rutgers. We beat them in the second half, our offense was anemic and we did nothing, but we got the win. And now we have a bye week before we travel to Indiana and take on the 18th ranked unbeaten Hoosiers. So that's going to be it's going to be dicey, but it's going to be a heck of a ball game. I think the big noon kickoff is going to be.
Is your club still ranked? Are you 4-1 and ranked?
We're unranked, but we're just outside of that top 25. Like, of the teams that received votes that weren't ranked, it was USC that got 90-something votes, and then we got 50-something. So we're like, quote-unquote, 27th ranked, if you will. So we're on the fringe. You played.
You were scheduled to play flag football last night. Did you play? Did you get flagged during flag football for unsportsmanlike conduct, unnecessary for taunting? What happened?
Well, there was no game scheduled last night. I've got something on Monday at 5:30. We're on the 5:30 slot. We'll be playing on the Vine Street Fields, and there I intend to get my excessive celebration. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I might do the Hingle McCringleberry pelvic thrust just because that's a classic, but I also like the Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown CPR.
You're right.
We'll have to see. I'm debating.
I've been teaching my boys in the street when we've been playing catch to do the Charles Woodson Heisman when he was at Michigan. Pull off the Heisman Trophy move after you score.
You know, my very favorite Deuce of all time, and you're probably aware of this, maybe not, but when Terrell Owens had a Sharpie in his sock, and after he scored a tutty, he signed the football and tossed it into the crowd. To me, that's the greatest of all time. Have a Sharpie in your sock, sign the football, and hand it to the referee. You'll get a flag for sure. I'm telling you will.
That's genius.
Yeah, so I think you ought to do that. Well, all right, now, so take care of yourself. We'll see you soon. You're coming home. Your fall break is the 21st and 22nd. We'll be at the bank to watch the Kitties and the Vikings. Hopefully, it's the 4-1 Kitties against 5-0 Vikings. It'll be a great game. So we'll see you soon.
It'll be a heck of a game. It's got disaster written on it.
Yeah, well, that's true. It could be bad news for Detroit.
Hi, Deuce.
Thanks, Deuce.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And Mark, you say you're leaving when? Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow morning. It's already 9 o'clock
here.
Yeah. So about bedtime. You got to get up an early wake up call, fly through Boston, get back home, and back at it next week.
You'll be back at it next week, and then you're around for a week or a week and a half, and then you're going out to L.A., right?
Going to L.A. for the see my son and do. I'll give you a buzz from out there. We'll take in the Timberwolves opener against the Lakers, and then the Vikings, of course, playing the Rams on Thursday night. They got a quick turnaround after the Lions game. Hopefully, they'll be in pretty good health. We're all waiting to see what's going to happen with Aaron Jones, of course. That's a big question mark going into the Lions game. Hopefully, the extra 2 days of enable him to play, because that's been a problem for him in his career. But boy, you could tell the difference without him. He's that good.
We look forward to your triumphant return next week.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, my boy.
Go Lynx.
Yeah,
yep,
there you go.
you, sir.
Yeah, travel safely. That's the legendary Mark Rosen. Tenby, somebody sent me a link to Aaron Rodgers' appearance on Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
Did you see this? The one where they asked him about Beeflo's defense?
I heard it yesterday on Justin Guard's show.
He went into this long rant, and it was kind of fascinating. He actually goes, well, he does this and they do that. And he's talking all in technical football terms.
Yeah.
And he almost seems like he's kind of bored talking. I was like, well, here, I got to try to dumb it down for you guys because of this and that and the other thing. And what's crazy is he explained it like he could read it like a book, yet he had he couldn't solve it out of the field, which was kind of crazy. But it was very complex. The B-flow, it's a crazy scheme, as Brock Purdy said. So that was kind of funny to watch him go. He must have talked about that scheme for about 5 minutes before he.
Yeah, it was like a 3-minute soundbite yesterday.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see how complicated it is when the kiddies
How
come
come it
to
wasn't
town.
as complicated last year? Or is it just a matter of now we got the proper people in place to execute the complicated?
I'll stick with that. I said that, and that's not to suggest that if you're starting to rank your defensive coordinators, that B-Flow shouldn't be near the top of that. But B-Flow himself, and we talked about this when the story broke 2 weeks ago, when B-Flow, and I think he was just trying to be humble too and give the credit to the players, but he basically said it's their defense. Yeah, I put it together, but they're out in the field and I give them the autonomy to make changes, split-second decisions out there on the field, and he's got the right guys to do it so far. I mean, so far so good. The defense has been, the offense has been very good the first 3 weeks. Last couple of weeks, not as good, especially in the second halves, but the defense has been kind of the backbone of the club, and I wouldn't expect that to change.
And they've done it without their first-round draft pick.
That's
barely playing.
That's exactly right. And as we talked about before, I don't think the Lions' defense has gotten that much better, so I think it's going to really be how well can Jared Goff and the Lions' offense solve that B-flow defense, and then if the Vikings need an elixir, they need a good get-ready cure or get well cure for their offense. It could be against the Kitties. Tenby, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. I appreciate that. Stick around. We're the only ones that weren't out at the X that hit the Fuse Box. A Big Ticket and JG, that's where they are for the home opener, the Wild, season opener too, lid lifter. They take on Columbus. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 12. Who's in for Program Password?
Audra Martin and Carly Zucker.
Should be fun. That's at 1:30 tomorrow. Lil B, Feminine Church at 1 o'clock. We're back at noon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.